She didn't tag me, but every single person who saw that post knew exactly who she was talking about. The caption sat there in clean white text over a blurred photo of a teenage boy in a varsity jacket. And that teenage boy was me. My name is Carter Whitfield. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, in a neighborhood where success is usually measured by how quickly you outgrow your past. I had spent the last 10 years making sure no one remembered mine. But in one post, Sloan Harrington brought it back to life. Not just privately, publicly, carefully, and intentionally enough that it didn't look like an accident. The thing about humiliation is that it doesn't arrive all at once. It leaks in through notifications. A like here, a comment there, a message from someone you haven't spoken to in years asking, "Is this about you?" I stare at my phone longer than I should have. Not because I didn't understand what she did, but because I understood exactly why she did it. And that made it worse. Sloan wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult me directly. She curated perceptions. She shaped rooms. She made people come to conclusions on their own. And once they did, she never had to defend herself. We met 2 years earlier at a fundraising gala in Paradise Valley. She was standing near the terrace, speaking with a group of investors about a startup she didn't even work for. Confident, composed, effortless in a way that made everyone around her slightly more aware of themselves. I remember thinking she was out of my league, not because of how she looked, but because of how she moved through conversations like she owned them. She asked me what I did. I told her I ran a boutique consulting firm, which was true, but not impressive enough for the room we were in. She smiled anyway, and for a moment, I thought that meant something. It did, just not what I assumed. Our relationship built slowly, and from the outside, it looked balanced. We attended events together. We hosted dinners. We traveled, but there was always a subtle imbalance in how we were seen. Sloan was the one people remembered. I was the one who accompanied her. At first, I convinced myself that didn't matter. I told myself relationships weren't competitions. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being Carter Whitfield and started becoming Sloan Harrington's boyfriend. The shift didn't happen overnight. It happened in small moments. Introductions where my name came second. Conversations where I was spoken around instead of to. Jokes where my past became a safe topic. Because high school was the last time I'd been visibly exceptional. State championships, scholarships, recognition. All of it documented in photos I hadn't looked at in years. Photos Sloan had asked to see early in our relationship. She called it, wanted to understand where I came from. I didn't question it at the time. I felt seen, which in hindsight was the first mistake. The night before the post, we had dinner at her place. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument. No raised voices. Just a conversation that didn't land the way she wanted it to. She asked me about expansion, about scaling my business, about whether I planned to take things to the next level. I told her I was stable, comfortable, that I preferred steady growth over risk. She didn't argue. She just nodded. But her silence felt like a decision. The next morning, the post went up. And suddenly, everything she hadn't said out loud became visible. Before we go further, think about this for a moment. If someone you trusted chose to criticize you publicly instead of speaking to you privately, would you see it as honesty or as strategy? I didn't confront her immediately. That surprised even me. Instead, I watched. I read the comments. Some people laughed. Some agreed. Some tagged others. But the ones that stayed with me were the quiet ones. The ones that said nothing publicly but sent private messages asking if I was okay. Because those people understood something the rest didn't. This wasn't just a joke. It was positioning. Sloan wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to redefine me. And more importantly, redefine her association with me. By the time I saw her that evening, she was already ahead of the conversation. She greeted me like nothing had happened. Offered me a drink. Asked about my day. It was almost impressive. The level of control. The refusal to acknowledge the shift she had created. I asked her about the post. Calmly. Directly. She tilted her head slightly. Not confused. Measured. It wasn't about you, she said. And technically, she was right. She never said my name. She didn't need to. That picture? I asked. She shrugged. It's just a theme people are talking about. A theme. That word sat heavier than anything else she could have said. Because themes don't have accountability. Themes don't require apologies. Themes are just ideas people engage with. I realized in that moment that I wasn't dealing with conflict. I was dealing with narrative. And in her version of it, I had already been reduced. The next few days changed something in me. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, precisely. I stopped defending myself in conversations where I wasn't present. I stopped explaining my choices. I stopped trying to correct perceptions she had already shaped. Instead, I started documenting. Not for revenge, for clarity. Every conversation, every comment, every moment where her public image and private behavior didn't align. Because if this was going to continue, I needed to understand the pattern fully. And it was a pattern. Sloan valued proximity to momentum. Not people, momentum. And the moment she decided mine had plateaued, she began distancing herself. Subtly, strategically, without ever appearing disloyal. The midpoint came at a charity event 2 weeks later. The same kind of room where we had first met. But this time, the energy was different. People still greeted her the same way. But when they spoke to me, there was something new behind their eyes. Not disrespect, assessment, as if they were deciding whether I still belonged in that space. And for the first time, I didn't try to prove that I did. Instead, I stepped back, watched, listened, and realized something uncomfortable. Sloan wasn't wrong about everything. I had plateaued, not because I lacked ability, but because I had chosen comfort over expansion, security over risk. And in doing so, I had allowed my identity to shrink into something manageable, predictable, safe. The difference was I never framed that as failure. She did. That night, I made a decision. Not about her, about myself. I didn't confront her again. I didn't argue. I didn't try to change her perspective. Because perspectives like hers aren't changed through conversation. They're changed through distance and consequences. Before we continue, I want you to think about this. If someone sees you as less the moment you stop growing in a way that benefits them, is the problem your growth or their expectation? I ended the relationship the following week. Not dramatically, not publicly, privately, directly. She didn't fight it. She didn't ask me to reconsider. She simply nodded, the same way she had during that dinner, like the outcome was already calculated. In the months that followed, her life continued exactly as expected. Events, connections, momentum. From the outside, nothing changed for her. For me, everything did, but not in the way people imagine. There was no sudden success, no dramatic comeback, no viral moment that redefined me overnight. There was just work, uncomfortable, uncertain, necessary. I expanded my firm slowly, took risks I had avoided for years, lost some, won some, and most importantly, I stopped measuring myself through other people's perception. About 6 months later, I saw another post from her. Different caption, different context, but the same tone. Curated, controlled, strategic. And for the first time, it didn't affect me. Not because I had become more successful than her, but because I had become independent of her narrative. The truth is, Sloan didn't ruin my reputation. She revealed a version of me I had outgrown but never replaced. And in doing so, she forced a decision I had been avoiding. Not about her, about who I was willing to become next.